Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Happy Friday.
You need a website.
Hey,
You need a website.
I need a website.
Why not try Wix something or other? Stupid stuff. All right. It's Friday Live. We're running a little bit late. I'm going to be completely honest.
Tormund had to go pee.
It's totally Nicole's fault. So
No,
if we're just being,
we're blaming
between
the dog.
friends,
We're blaming the dog.
we blame the dog every week. We blame the dog for your farts.
Somebody just said, Carl said, I hope Tormund's feeling better.
Tormund is feeling better. He's got his little wrapped sock on. He gets the bandage replaced in a couple of days. And man, what a thing to have happen, right?
Yeah.
That dew claw thing. And what we didn't understand, like I assumed if you really mangled the dew claw that they're gonna remove it. And our vet was like, She's like, that's a full-scale amputation. She said, unless I absolutely need to, and she said I never have in my career, I will not remove a front dew claw. I will remove the nail and then let it grow back. So that's what happened.
There you go.
So that's where we're at. That's the dog update for today, but Tormund's doing great. He's an awesome dog.
Such a cool dog.
Don't tell Millie, but I think I like him a little bit better than Millie.
Well, Tormund can be yours and Millie can be mine.
Okay. Okay, I got the cooler one then. I'm glad you brought my hairband. Thank you. Here, let me put my hair up.
Yeah.
Hold on, here it is.
Terrible.
What do you think?
Hey, guess what? Oh, that's...
Actually, I look like I should have a scarf on, selling very crappy furnture at a craft fair. My little man bun. Sorry if anyone has a man bun. It's a sexy look.
We're officially the same age right now.
For a couple of weeks. Actually, a couple more days.
A couple more days. I turned 41 on Sunday.
I likes the old ladies. What can I say? Look at this. I got my Z-Man shirt on today.
I got my Borderland shirt on.
And I got to tell you, the Z-Man has ruined barbecue for me now because I compare everything to it. So maybe we could talk to David and see what are the chances he can ship a barbecue package to me and it still be edible and not terrible. You think it'll work?
Yeah.
The bread might get soggy, huh?
Yeah.
All right, we'll just have to go there. Okay, let's get to it. So Patreon supporters, I'm actually going to read these off at the top of the show today.
Hey, that's actually a great idea.
Dan Aldinger, Lawrence Cosmeter, Mike Shahada, Madrine Technologies, Matt Held, David Heverin, Gavin Backus, Terry Battisti, and Doug Sleater and Kayanine. So thank you folks for helping us out over at Patreon. That's patreon.com/woodwhisperer. We've got a lot of cool things you can get as bonuses and little prizes if you sign up to help us out with a recurring donation, which is essentially what it is. You could be a patron of the arts, a patron of the farts on this show.
Beautiful World wasn't on that list. I don't know when they signed up, but...
I didn't see Beautiful World.
But they are a...
Oh, I'm just, we maybe have to check my filter.
Okay.
Something might be off.
Beautiful World.
Oh, Beautiful World.
Thank you.
You're making our world beautiful.
They make really cool custom iPhone cases.
So speaking of the levels, did you want to talk about the potential goal that we might set up?
Yeah.
So go for it.
Why am I doing it?
Because I've been talking this whole time. Pull your weight, sister.
I forget.
It was your idea.
Was it my idea?
No, it was my idea.
No, it was your idea. The PM stuff. Oh
my goodness, girl.
Okay.
You need more coffee.
Yeah, well, I'm done with my coffee. I'm drinking water now.
Okay, go ahead.
You tell.
Okay, I have to do everything around here. So we're considering doing a possible monthly PM edition of
as one of the goals, right?
Friday Live. Yeah. So someone made a joke on Facebook about us, I guess, living in Colorado, and it would be a funny show. And I said, well, maybe we should do, have a couple of beers. And there's no way I'm having a couple of beers first thing in the morning. So I thought, you know what, we could set it up as a goal where one show a month, we actually do an evening edition of Friday Live and maybe partake in a little beverage. And Nicole will nurse it by taking 2 sips.
Little sips.
Every once in a while. But we would have a PM edition, and it might get a little weird. We'd have to time it so that it's after our daughter goes to sleep.
Are we allowed to curse?
Maybe we will.
I don't know.
Maybe we will. F me if I know. But we'll figure it all out. But if you guys are interested in something like that, let us know. We'll set it up as a potential goal. And then instead of doing a Friday morning show once a month, we would just do a Friday evening show. Put Ava down to sleep, get Mateo playing some video games to give us an hour, and then we'll have a good show. What do you think? Let us know.
Nova Kane said, let's get weird.
Let's get weird. Let's take our clothes off. Whoa, that's a little too much. No. Settle down, Nicole.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into some questions. What do you say? Oh shoot, let's not. Let's do this first. I got a quick project update on the chair I'm working on. And I also have we set up the live page on the Wood Whisperer again. We used to do that in the past, and I think it's going to be useful to us again. So if you go to thewoodwhisperer.com/live, that's kind of just the universal place where you can go to watch the live show, participate in the chat. If you're on Facebook, you could participate in the chat there as well, but we don't monitor that. But if you go to thewoodwhisperer.com/live, you'll see a little chat room there. It's the YouTube chat that's been embedded, and you could use that to communicate with us during the live show. Okay?
Beanbag wants to know what our favorite beer is. I like Blue Moon.
I am not that picky. I mean, I don't even love beer, is the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I drink a beer once in a while. My neighbor Jim has, he's a connoisseur of beer, and he brews his own.
We just let Jim.
I let Jim hand me bottles over the fence. That's always nice.
And David said they do have a shipping option.
Who?
The barbecue people.
Do they really?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're going to look into this. We're going to look into
He
this.
just says, just let me know what you want, since I'm not really a connoisseur.
Well, let's look into this. Okay, so here are chair legs that I'm working on. So this is the progress for the current dining chair guild build. And I've cut a couple of mortises. These are all router cut mortises here. And I've got my left and right legs that have yet to be cut out. And you could probably see some of the trace lines on there that I'll be cutting those out later on today, most likely.
I am so excited we're getting dining room chairs.
Well, you don't have a dining room chair yet.
I
just have a stack of lumber.
I see it in front of me.
It's getting there, though. So this is a cool project. If you're interested, it's still in the early bird bundle if you want to get a hold of that. But the dining chair is going to be a pretty good one. It's quite an adventure in design, and it's kind of a different approach than I've taken in past projects because we're actually just making the prototype, and then you'll get to see me batch some of these out. So, so that's a good one, making some headway on that. Let's get into some questions, shall we?
Is the National Hardware Show the same thing as, it's not the same thing as AWFS, is it? No, they're two different things?
Yes.
We're going to be at AWFS, and in fact, they just sent out a really cool program.
Oh, yeah, like a little magazine thing.
Yeah.
We're in there. It's kind of neat.
It was very cool to see you in there.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's going to be a good time.
He's going to do a class, so.
Sort of. It's like a seminar. Yeah, and
a meet and greet.
Kyle Toth is going to be there as well. I've never met the guy in person, so that'll be pretty cool. All right, let's get to Yoso's question. When buying a 1/2 inch shank spiral flush trim bit, is there any reason other than price to buy a 1 1/4 inch versus a 2 inch version? Also, do you recommend up or down spiral? Looks like with the down spiral bit, you can use the template itself to prevent tear out. By the way, you were wondering last week if you pronounced my name correctly, and you did.
Yay!
Okay, so here's the thing with the flush trim bit. You have options, because if your bearing is on top, let's say, and you go with a flush a spiral that's up or down, think about it. You can always put your template on the other side. So you put your template on top of a workpiece. If the bearing isn't on the right side, or maybe the flush trim orientation, the spiral orientation isn't in your favor, you can always flip it over, and of course you would need your bearing on the other side, but then you can also go hand routed. So the directionality of the spiral kind of depends on whether you're going handheld or in the router, and then which side you have your template on. And this is why it's nice to have multiples, because it just gives you more versatility. Depending on what operation you're doing, what tool you're using, you could use one or the other. But think about it, there's different scenarios where the upcut in the router table might work versus the upcut in a handheld, or a down cut spiral in one or the other. So it's kind of one of those things. As far as the bit length, that just depends on the capacity you need. You know, if you're working with really thick stock like this, you might want something a little bit more substantial than 1 1/4 inch. That's where the 2 inch comes in handy. But I don't like using a really long spiral or a really long flush trim bit because too much bit exposed, then you don't get as clean of a cut. It tends to get a little bit of a wobble there. So if I'm going to go for something that big, I like to go with a larger diameter and then go with a slower speed. And that's where like the William Eng Big Daddy bit comes in.
The Big Daddy bit. Hey, before you go, I just want to say you got a birthday card.
Woo!
This is the cutest birthday card. It's a recliner. You can't really see it, but you pull on it. You pull on it and it kind of reclines. So this is from Mike Zellman and Edie Zellman.
Well,
they
thank
just
you.
wanted to say happy birthday.
Thanks, Mike and Edie. So yeah, here it is. Very cool.
So cute.
Thank you so much. That was great. Andrew wrote in, I have a pretty basic question. Is there any time where using water-based poly indoors is a bad idea? I've always used oil-based and just wondering if I should switch to water-based for easier cleanup. There's really no reason you can't switch to water-based. The water-based finishes these days are really pretty darn good. There was a time not too long ago where we would say, well, water-based finishes just aren't durable or they don't look good, right? And that's kind of changing these days. EnduroVar is a good example of a really durable water-based finish that actually doesn't look like water-based finish. Is that thing down there?
I don't know.
Yeah, can you hand me that?
This big honking thing?
Yeah, give me that big honking thing down there. Oh, goodness. Thank you. So this is the drill charging station I built on the show years ago. This has EnduroVar on it. This is a water-based finish, and I'm gonna let the light grab that. Okay, this does not look to me like a typical water-based finish on a dark, fairly dark wood. This is Bubinga, so it's got a nice deep red color. Absolutely gorgeous, and this is a water-based finish. Okay, and that's figured maple on the top there and the shelf, right? So, it's not what it used to be. So there are great water-based finish options out there. I really can't think of a negative unless you happen to get a water-based finish that just isn't all that durable. All right, durability still, your oil-based finishes I think are still going to ultimately be, just generically speaking, your more durable variety, but that doesn't mean you can't find a water-based finish that's gonna suit your needs.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think the only disadvantage is that the water-based stuff might be a little trickier to apply because it dries faster, but that's just a learning curve thing, so.
Hey, we forgot to update everyone. I did some turning last week.
What?
Yep. So if you missed any of the posts that Mark, he finally got the lathe set up, and I did turn a bowl that ended up.
Amazing job.
Oh my gosh.
She made a beautiful funnel.
I did. It's funny too because when it happened, I'm like, "What's that sound?" And then I was like, "Oh."
And the thing's spinning around your tool.
It just went.
Whoa! Look at that. It's hula hooping.
So we're trying to recover it, but this is the bowl, and we're gonna put some. This is walnut.
Well,
right?
she busted through. Sorry, I didn't mean to grab it, but no one can see it.
Yeah.
She busted right through the hole and or created this hole here, so the whole bowl just kind of fell off. So I figured, you know what? Let's try to at least recover this thing. Yeah. Let's make it usable. So I epoxied it down to some of this nice figured maple, and darn it, what was the vendor? A couple weeks ago, the guy that sent me the walnut up in, I think it's like the Pacific Northwest.
EP Woods?
If we can remember, it was from a couple weeks ago. The guy sent me a beautiful selection of walnut. Well, this is one of the pieces, and it's really nicely figured. I mean, it's just a beautiful piece. So I just epoxied this down, clamped it in place. It's not a great joint, so I put pressure down, but relied on the epoxy to kind of do the work. So we're gonna cut it back out, remount it, and try to make a sort of bullnose base all the way around. And this way, when she gets back onto turning it, she can actually just turn right through this epoxy and push the bowl a little bit deeper. And then she'll go through that one. And then I'll have to get another piece of walnut underneath to make a double stack. Or hopefully she'll just not do that.
Yeah, how about I just finish it?
Yeah, how about that? So this could actually be a very, very cool looking bowl. But again, turning a mistake into an opportunity is what that comes down to.
Yep.
Did you have fun though? Did you enjoy the turning process?
And it was like wood chips everywhere. I don't remember the walnut burl doing that much.
Yeah, maybe it just kind of frays apart a little bit more. Burl tends to, the grain isn't as continuous. Right. It kind of is interrupted, so it might flake off a little bit more. It
was kind of wild as I was turning. I was just feeling the heat of the shavings.
Yeah, I got to admit, while you were turning, I was feeling the heat too. I thought you looked quite sexy. It was nice. It was nice to watch.
Aw, thanks.
I can say that because she's my wife.
Yes.
You guys can't say that because then it would be sexist. So. Okay, Mark Nyland wrote in, "Hi guys, love your show, look forward to every Friday. I'm currently building a consolidated flip-top sanding center and was wondering which power sanding machines do you regularly use? The disc, spindle, belt, where do they fit into your workflow? And do you have a favorite? Thanks for all your help. Hope the new puppy's doing okay." He is. And as for the sanders, I'm gonna pan the camera over there just for variety so you don't get the same background all the time. I'm gonna go all the way over there. It's not gonna be a very good shot, but I'm gonna do the best I can. Here I go, here I go. Okay, we're all the way over here, and I've got my oscillating spindle sander. That's my old Rainbird irrigation timer, and I replaced it with a Raccio, and it's badass. So this is my oscillating spindle sander. It's a jet model. This is the Powermatic sanding station with the belt sander. Is that a 2-position? I've only used it vertically. I don't know if you can move it. I know you can move the table. And then of course the disc sander here. So here's the deal. I use my oscillating spindle sander all the time. It's great for curves, interior and concave and convex curves, although it's better for concave. But I've got a bunch of different spindles here. This thing is probably my most used and favorite stationary sander. This guy does not get used nearly as much. In fact, I still have the same belts on it that were there when I purchased it. And it can come in handy, like a lot of times maybe the bottom of a leg just needs a little bit of work and squaring up, I'll just... These are very similar in function. The key though is if you really want to take advantage of these, you use the miter slots and you put some kind of jig on there, and then you could do all kinds of things for sanding to certain angles or sanding circles, whatever it is. It's just with what I've built so far in my career, I have not made much use of this sanding station. I've often thought about getting rid of it, but it does come in handy for certain things. So it's just once in a while. So yes, if I were to replace this, I actually might just get a larger disc sander, one of those big floor standing units, and just have that, because I think you could really do a lot with that, and I find it to be quite redundant for what this belt sander can do. So that's just my personal experience. Other people may have different experiences.
Hey, we have a super chat.
Super chat!
Super chat!
Go ahead, hit me with it.
From Daniel.
Oh, Daniel.
Trying to purchase my first router. Thoughts on buying an affordable cordless palm trim router versus a corded plunge router that's more expensive?
Well, cordless tools are great, and in some cases, I mean, they're getting better and better, it seems, like all the varieties that are out there. Shoot, some of our yard tools now are battery powered, which I, years ago when I had a lawn early in my life, now we have them again. I would not have expected a battery powered weed whacker to be worth anything, and it actually works quite well. Oh,
is it Golby Walnut Products? Golby?
Yes, I think so.
G-O-B-Y?
I think so.
Yep.
I think I have his card over on the table there.
Yep.
So
Scott
yes, it's right there on the tool.
Yep.
He gave me a sticker, Gobi. Thank you. I should have just looked over there. So when it comes to cordless power tools, there are times when you really need it. There's times when it's super convenient, and there's times where it's just not really necessary. So for instance, my cordless jigsaw. That's great, because a lot of times I need to take the jigsaw to a very large piece of wood. It's just super convenient to be able to run through it, and I only make a couple of cuts. So the fact that it's battery powered doesn't really, impact my work very much. Now, when it comes to a router, you tend to do more long-term work. You may run that router for a longer period of time. To me, a router is not the ideal tool to be cordless. I mean, at least the way batteries last these days. So when you use a router, you tend to use it a lot. So I would rather just have a corded solution. It's probably going to be more powerful, and you don't have to worry about the battery going out on you. Unless you have a particular need for cordless functionality, I would definitely stick with the corded.
Because the batteries in the cordless ones, they lose charge over time, right?
Yeah, I mean, batteries just over time don't hold as much charge. It's just going to be a constant thing that you're just going to have to worry about. And if you don't have a charged battery, you can't use your router, right? So to me, it's just a pain in the butt for that particular tool. I would go corded. And even if it's a more expensive tool, it's probably going to be a better tool. What was the other aspect to his question other than the battery? Was there one?
Just thoughts on buying an affordable cordless palm router versus a corded plunge router.
I guess the argument is that, the palm router isn't running as hard as a big 2 horsepower, 3 horsepower motor. So maybe you get more life out of it, and you're also taking it to the work and using it very quickly. So again, if it fits that profile of usage, then maybe it would be okay. But I still, I got power in my shop. I'm not on the road. So the cordless thing is not as attractive to a woodworker like me.
There you go.
Okay.
You want to do another?
Sure. Chris McCoy says, what is the best method for painting MDF? I've heard of people using joint compound and a water glue mixture. For example, to make a raised panel door and MDF panel, how would you paint it and prep it? Well, I don't really do much with MDF, but MDF is very thirsty, right? So you do want to seal it up before you do anything with it, especially painting. The end grain, quote unquote, the ends of MDF basically soaks stuff like a sponge, and it's also very textured. So what you'll find is people do use joint compound. They use, like you said, glue size, which is just glue and water. You can also use something pretty inexpensive, like joint compound, but it's plumber's putty, all right? That's the big thing of powder. You just mix it with water, and you can put that on the edge and then sand it back, and that makes those edges pretty close to as smooth as the face of the MDF, because the face of MDF is like glass smooth. It's really nice and smooth, a good substrate for paint. So what I would probably do is use the joint compound or plumber's putty. I mean, the glue size is also a good option, but I think the stuff that actually has, you know, schmutz in it, let's call it that, the joint compound, I think is a little bit of a better option. It dries quickly and you could sand it nice and smooth. But then I would still give the whole thing a shellac seal. There are other ways to seal it. You've got primers that you can use. If you're going into the paint world, certainly look into those. But think of, you know, my background is mostly clear finishes, not paints. So my instinct is to just grab some, you know, shellac, coat it up, and be done with it. But you may just be as well, you know, serve just as well with a good quality primer that complements the paint you're about to put on the MDF.
Yep.
Okay, Keegan Morrison, I'm struggling to get dust and small particles off plywood before painting it. I've tried a brush attachment on a shop vac, blowing with an air compressor, and then wiping with a cloth. Nothing seems to work 100%. When I run my hand across, there's still small particles of dust. Any tips? Well, geez, it is a little bit surprising because I do the same thing. I find that, you know, the shop vac and the brush is pretty good. It gets most of it. If I don't get anything, if there's anything left, usually compressed air is pretty good. But compressed air just throws it back in the air. So while it might be smooth for a second, a couple minutes later, you go back down and put your hand on there, you might feel some of the dust on the surface. So then wiping with a cloth should be pretty effective. I'm surprised that you still have dust issues at that point. If it's a problem, I mean, whatever dust is on the surface at that point is going to be, it's got to be negligible. And you might be just being a little bit, you know, honestly, just a little bit too picky about it. But, you know, we're all kind of picky about certain things. So it is what it is. I would probably recommend trying a tack cloth, okay? Either buy them or make them. Tack cloths are basically cheesecloth with some, I'm gonna use the word schmutz again, embedded in, when I don't know what something is and it's like a liquidy, gooey thing, it's a schmutz. So it's got this schmutz on there and it basically pulls up all the dust. So it's not just a wet rag, it's actually a rag that is, you know, sticky to an extent, but it doesn't deposit anything on the wood, it just kind of picks up the dust. So I think the dust. So I think a tack cloth is probably gonna be your best bet to satisfy your pickiness. So.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
This one's from Matt H. I'm wondering the best way to make a rip cut on a table saw when the piece is longer than the distance the miter gauge can sit on, or can sit in the track without wobble. It is also too big for a crosscut sled. I've tried ripping a tabletop glue up this way, but since the miter gauge moves from side to side, the cut isn't straight. Do I need to give up and not use the table saw? Okay, so clarification, he said rip, what we're talking about is a crosscut. Okay, so I mean, unless he's got a dimension where he's actually cutting with the grain, so it qualifies technically as a rip, we're getting into minutia here. But the bottom line is the piece, he's trying to use a miter gauge or a crosscut sled, and the piece is too deep to fit with those tools. They don't work well. Right. Well, yes, unless you can find a way to use those things or to make a safe cut just using the fence, and you might be in that dimension. There is a point where you have enough reference surface, even if the piece doesn't fit the classic dimensions of a safe crosscut, you may be at a point where you have enough reference surface that you can safely push that thing through the table saw without the use of your crosscut sled or the miter gauge. But if you feel it's you're uncomfortable with it, don't do it. At that point, you have to start looking at circular saw options. I mean, that's why I bought the MFT years ago, was because I couldn't get the cuts I was looking for at the table saw with big wide pieces of plywood. So the Festool MFT answered that question of how do I get almost like a panel saw operation in my shop. The MFT did that for me. But short of that, you could use a guide with a circular saw and get pretty close. And a lot of times if you get close, you can get the piece cut to a safe dimension, then you could bring it back to the table saw and go for those consistent cuts there. Hey, hi Australia.
Oh, good day, Australia.
Good day.
Is it nighttime there?
Probably.
That's cool.
Or is it, I thought it was a whole day ahead.
A day ahead?
Maybe it's, I don't know.
I don't know. I bet you they're eating shrimp though on the Barbie right now.
Probably not.
That's what they all do. That's awesome. Jean-Philippe wrote in, bought a sliding miter saw not so long ago, and the instructions in your safety video, if I remember correctly, mentioned to never pull the saw through the cut as it can climb the material and run towards you. But I see a lot of woodworkers and makers in videos doing exactly that. making a small groove in the material while pulling and then pushing back for the cut. Is there a special technique I don't know, or is there a lot of Darwin Award contenders making videos on the web? Well, without a doubt, there absolutely is a lot of Darwin Award contenders on the web. That's just the way the internet works. Let's go look at the miter saw real quick.
By the way, it's 2:38 a.m. in Australia right now, so it is tomorrow.
Oh, wonderful. Good day.
And they're called prawns, by the way.
They're prawns? Prawns on the Barbie? That doesn't sound as good.
It doesn't roll off the tongue.
Doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah.
I love a good king prawn. All right. Isn't Pepe a king prawn?
Yes, he is.
Not a shrimp?
He's not a shrimp.
He's very specific about these things. Okay, so what he's talking about is someone cutting a workpiece, and let's pretend the saw's running, and they're pulling it toward them. Well, the problem with that is the blade is spinning this way. So can you imagine what's happening here? As you're pulling with you, it does become a climb cut, and that means the motion that you're pulling the tool is working in concert with the motion of the blade, and it wants to further go that way. So this is why on a sliding compound miter saw, our typical cut is to pull the saw toward us first before we engage the material, go down, and then push through. Now the blade is still moving the same direction, but the motion is working against that, and it's pushing the force into the fence, not toward us, and that's exactly what we want. So what he's saying is people are starting their cut back here, and then the blade's running and they're pulling through. Now, if they were cutting all the way through the workpiece, that would absolutely be a Darwin Award contender. What he's describing, though, is someone who's creating a kerf cut. So if you don't go all the way through the workpiece and you're just maybe at the top of the workpiece, and you're just grazing the top and pulling it towards you, chances are they're just creating a kerf cut to make an initial smooth cut, because you can get some tear out over here at the chop saw. So they're making that initial kerf cut, then going down all the way through and pushing through the wood. And because they're not really cutting much wood that first time around, the forces at play aren't that significant. So while technically it is still a what you would call a climb cut, they're just kerfing. And then when they're actually pushing all the way through and all those forces are at play, they're now using the saw properly and pushing through. So it's just a kerfing technique, what you're seeing. Now, if you do see someone plunge all the way into the work and then pull back toward them, almost like they're using a radial arm saw, that's not going to be a good thing, and that should be discouraged. I don't even know that I would necessarily encourage the kerfing, but I'm just saying that it's not as inherently dangerous as you might think, you know, on the surface. I don't really see anything too wrong with that sort of a cut. So let's go back.
As you're walking back, Jesus says, spring is here, and the wife wants more planters. What is a good finish for an exterior planter for edibles?
Well, you know what? I think I would probably, well, first of all, I should have mentioned this earlier. I did just put out a video on exterior finishes.
Hey, there you go.
Right?
And we're eating on it. Durable
outdoor finish. Yeah, well, we're not serving food on it.
No, but Ava drops food.
Here you go, kids. Have at it.
Well, for Ava.
Yeah. So for a planter, you have to be realistic about what you expect out of wood. Wood is not a miracle material. It's a natural material. And it seems to always, especially outdoors, want to go to its natural state of decomposition. And Mother Nature wants to push it in that direction. So if you fill the wood thing with soil and water and a plant, over time, you know, Mother Nature is going to take over and it's going to want to decompose the interior of that box. Mm-hmm. So no matter what you finish it with, I would probably put some kind of a liner in there. You want to keep the soil off of the wood for the most durability.
Because then it would potentially like get into it.
Well, I think what he's concerned about is like the finish.
Mold.
If it starts to decompose and pull the plastic and resins and all the finished particles into the soil, he's concerned about safety.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. I don't know that it would be that big of a deal, but I don't think I would want to take a chance, right? So put a liner in there. Your wood product, your planters, will thank you for it. Put some kind of a liner, make sure that the soil never contacts it, and then this way you could finish it however you want. Follow the instructions I just put into that video that I released today. Finish the heck out of it. Make sure it's impervious to moisture, and then put a liner inside, and then you're going to be happy, and the thing should last a whole lot longer.
That's a nice tip. Speaking of finish, Chris Robinson wants to know, would you...
When are we going to finish? Get the stupid show over with? Go ahead.
Would you use teak oil in an outdoor project again, assuming you'd be okay with reapplying it once a year?
I would. Yeah.
I'm building an outdoor dining table and bench out of red cedar.
As long as you're okay with not having a whole lot of protection to begin with and having the, at least what would likely be yearly task of refinishing and reapplying, probably sanding the surface and reapplying a couple coats of the teak oil, I think you'll be okay. I haven't really done that myself. I just put that one coat on and let it go, which was really dumb. But I think it should be okay, theoretically. It's just a maintenance commitment.
Haley says she makes, or maybe it's a he, makes planters. I use builder plastic with a few base holes.
There you go.
So there you go.
Good suggestion.
Yep.
Joe Lipinski, why on earth did I buy these zero clearance bandsaw throat inserts? I bought them for my bandsaw a year ago and simply haven't used them because I have yet to see them in use by anybody else, nor have I had any issues with the factory wide mouth insert. Have you ever seen a need for these things? Yes. All right.
Yeah.
There you go, Joe. You're welcome.
Yes.
You know, there are times when I'm cutting small parts. If I'm cutting plugs, maybe just little inserts or something, you know, like a green and green plug or something like that. There are times when I'm cutting little tiny pieces, and if it's tiny enough to fit through that hole, the kerf hole in the insert, then it could be a problem. So I say, you bought them, go put them on there. Stop being so lazy. Go put them on the saw and start using them. It can't hurt anything, but it will prevent things from going through. Now, even if I'm not talking about like a good off-cut keeper piece falling through, a lot of times the piece you're cutting is just a little sliver or a wedge. And I mean, you've had to have this happen where it kind of gets, the off-cut piece gets caught into the blade and the blade pushes it down and now it's wedged in there. So the only way to safely get it out is not to pull it out with your hand, but to stop the saw, then pull it out, then resume your cutting activity. And that sucks. So I actually think if you've got them, use them. Absolutely. If people aren't using them, it's because they haven't necessarily had the need. I don't hear, you know, just because I don't have those inserts. I just never bought them. But a lot of times what I'll do is take some blue tape for these critical things, and I'll run a couple pieces of blue tape over there to prevent things from falling in as a temporary solution. So yeah, go for it, please, install them.
2 super chats, one that I missed, so sorry, Tire Fryer 23. Thankfully, YouTube will put it at the top.
Yeah.
Thinking of building a walnut counter for my kitchen. Could I use plywood or should I go with solid lumber? What kind of finish would you recommend?
This is tricky. I don't love all wood countertops. There are a lot of maintenance. You know, we were just talking about outdoor projects and stuff.
I love the butcher block countertops. Those are awesome.
They could look cool, but it's maintenance. Yeah. You know, you're talking about food prep, water. You're talking about something that you're often going to want to disinfect and clean. It's just, you know, same thing like a all wood vanity top, you know, for a sink. It's just not the best option.
They have, just down the road, there's a Tony's Market, and they have a butcher block counter in their bakery. And I went in there one day going, oh, I'm gonna go get some baked goods. They had the whole thing shut down because they had to refinish.
A sanitation day or something?
That's exactly. They had woodworkers in there refinishing all of the butcher blocks.
Yeah, so I mean, if you love the look so much that you feel it's worth
We're trying to convince you not to do it.
Yeah, if you feel it's worth the maintenance headache, then there certainly are options for you. I would not go with plywood. Okay, because this is a surface that's probably going to be reworked at some point in the future. It's going to get wet. It's going to probably require you to remove a top layer someday. Things are going to fall on it, dent it. Plywood just has a thin layer of veneer, and I just don't think that that's going to be a really good option for a durable countertop. So stay away from the plywood, go with solid wood, but go into it knowing you've got this maintenance headache. So there's a couple different schools of thought here. One is if you are going to cut and possibly have food contact, you need to look at food safe finishes. So your natural oils and waxes are good options for that. They aren't going to offer a ton of protection, but they're easily renewable. You could go the other route and treat it like a bar top and put a very thick finish on there, which is good for moisture protection and abrasion and heat and all that stuff, but not necessarily the kind of surface you want to use as a butcher block. You don't want to cut on it.
I mean, I've seen where, like you were saying, the bar tops, and it's almost like a thick layer of glass.
It's like a poured on epoxy finish,
Yeah. Like what?
Almost like what I did on the table outside.
Yeah, but that looks nice. That's not shiny.
Well, because I put a matte finish on it.
Yeah.
Most of the time the bar top stuff is, yeah, it's reflective. So you have options, but again, I would encourage you to maybe consider something else, but it's your kitchen, it's your taste.
I mean, it looks beautiful.
It does look beautiful.
But just know the work you have in your future.
And, you know, God forbid, you know, wood is wood, right? It may go haywire at some point, and then you've got warpage and things to deal with. So.
Beanbag wants to know, Nicole, tell us how to do super chats. Super chats. There's like, in the chat.
I got a super hat right here.
There's a little, next to the happy face, there's a little $sign next to it. And we have 2 more super chats.
Oh, sorry. That was my super hat. I was waiting for you to see it.
It was cute.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have one from Derek A. Do you have a video for thinning finish for wiping? I thought we did.
It's something that I've done periodically. Simple varnish finish on the Guild site. It's a paid video. It used to be a DVD, then now it's a digital download. That's probably the most concise sort of let's talk about this, how you do this for wiping. But ultimately, there's not much to it. I would hate to see you go buy a whole video for something that I could tell you in 2 seconds. Dilute it about 50%. If you've got a typical varnish or full strength poly, add mineral spirits about 50%. If you want something that sort of flashes off a little bit faster, you can use naphtha. You could also use paint thinner if you don't mind stinky stuff. You can also use turpentine. There's a lot of thinners that you could do with oil-based. But to thin for wiping, it's no more than simply adding about 50% to it. Mix it really thoroughly. Get a paint stirrer, stick, and make sure it's thoroughly mixed, and then just wipe it on with a rag.
And we have, I'm going to put it into the chat room, we have 25 free videos on finishing. In fact, early on, we used to do live sessions where Mark would just talk about finishing. And we've recorded all of that stuff.
And we have projects where I use it.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily go into great detail, but you see it in use on a project.
Right. So. Okay,
my last pre-selected question here is from Dan. Is there a general rule of thumb for maximum thickness boards you could safely expect to get out of a 4/4, 5/4, 8/4 lumber after milling? And he says he's a Guild project winner. No, that was my reminder. I just put it too close to his question. That's weird. He's announcing himself. How does he know? Okay. Yeah, I think so. And this does depend on your vendor. Because sometimes someone sells you 4/4 and it's a very generous 4/4 that you can actually get 7/8 out of it. Man, I love when that happens because then we could just kind of abandon the 3/4 rule and just go with this nice, thick, extra, very custom looking material. But other times you get the stuff that's a little bit thinner. The best you could expect, and this is where your safe numbers are, at a 4/4 is probably 3/4 of an inch, right? So if you buy the 4/4, by the time you do your jointer, planer, all this milling, you should safely expect to have 3/4. If you don't, the wood must have been really warped, or your vendor is giving you really, really thin stock that you can't even get 3/4 out of it. 5/4, I usually buy that when I do want a guaranteed inch. So for instance, my table, the trestle table, I wanted a thicker top at 1 inch. I bought 5/4 stock for that. So by the time the milling is done, I know 1 inch is safe, and anything less than that is a guarantee pretty much. 8/4, usually I'm gonna get 1 3/4 inches out of it. And that's across the board. Most vendors that I've dealt with, the wood is thick enough that after milling, I'm gonna end up with 1 3/4 inches.
So Scott Hampshire said, for wood countertops, would there still be a lot of maintenance if you use an Epifanes finish and treat it like a counter, no cutting on it, just using it as a prep area?
A lot less,
yeah,
because you're gonna wipe up spills, you're not getting much moisture, you're not cutting directly on it, and you've got a killer finish that is, pretty impervious to liquids. It's also indoors, so it's not receiving your typical outdoor UV exposure and elements that you typically have outside with that finish. Just keep in mind though, Epifanes is not, you can use it for that, but it is a little bit of a softer finish. The intent there is that it's going to flex with the material as it expands and contracts. So some people may not like that. They might want a harder finish, but we've got that outdoor sitting bench that I initially made for the outdoors, and now it's sitting in our laundry room, kind of like a mud room, place to change your boots and stuff like that. And that thing is great inside. It feels good. I put the Epifanes followed by Epifanes matte on there, and it's holding up great. So yeah, I think it's a viable thing.
Eric says the small step stool video, I think, talks about that finish.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Boy, that's a long time ago. Oh, no. He's talking about the remake of the small step
Yeah,
stool.
that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, you could probably list a dozen videos where I've quickly discussed it.
I'm just gonna, oh, sorry. Stop.
Stop watching videos, Nicole. Come on.
I'm getting the link so I can put it in the chat room.
We're doing a show here.
Yeah.
I gotta itch my chest. I'm trying not to itch my
We got another super chat. Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, we gotta finish up here as well. So.
From
you wanna end with that one?
Edio Howland. Thanks for the training on the sliding miter saw. I have been using mine incorrectly all my life.
Oh no.
No one has ever told me what you just explained.
Well, excellent. I'm glad to help out. It's not a radial arm saw, you know, and that's one of the things that people mistake about it, especially if they're old, if they're sort of trained on older school
those ones,
tools.
I've seen those are scary.
They can be. A lot of people who like them really like them.
Yeah.
But they are all but dead in the marketplace. You know, there's really not a lot of them out there. So
David Price wants to know, how hard would it be to adjust the dimensions of the gaming table in the guild, and could Mark help me with that when I buy it?
Yes, I mean
yes, he will help you.
I can help you, but there's not much to it. I can't do it for you, but I could tell you how to do it. Basically, any table is just a matter of looking at what the critical dimensions are. So tables are 4 legs and 4 aprons. So the first thing you need to do is decide, okay, I want to lose 6 inches. I'm going to take it out of the aprons. So I leave the joinery at the ends the same. I'm just going to reduce this rail by 6 inches. And of course, the other one on the other side. Once you do that, now you have all the things that need to fit into that table, like the top and the frame that goes with it. You just have to subtract. It's just math. And we give you a SketchUp drawing that allows you to do that. So I can kind of give you, a quick primer on how to do it, but I'm not, there is a limit to how much I have time to do. So I'm not actually going to be able to give you the exact numbers, but I want to teach you how to do it so you could do it for yourself.
You're teaching you how to fish.
I'm teaching you how to fish so that you can go
and make a table.
Go get a fish fillet at McDonald's. Because fishing yourself is boring.
I have some really quick questions that we could probably just crank through real quick.
Let's do them fast.
Okay. So Robert wants to know, have you made any jigs that you continue to use often?
No.
You just make a jig and then throw it away?
Throw it away. Tapering jig I think is one that gets used quite often, but I don't even know where my tapering jig is. My crosscut sled is kind of a jiggy type thing. That gets
jiggy
used.
with it?
I get jiggy with it once in a while. But yeah, a lot of my jigs, I make them for a project and they're like up on cabinets and countertops and they're just out of the way in case I ever need them again.
Yeah.
A lot of them are sort of project specific jigs.
Josh wants to know, do you clean your brushes or toss them and buy new ones?
It depends. If I have a good natural bristle brush, like what I just finished that table with, I'm going to clean it and try to use it again. I don't want to waste it, but there are times where I apply things like epoxy sealer where I'm just using a cheap chip brush and then I throw it away. But absolutely, a good quality brush is totally worth saving and cleaning.
Kevin wants to know, for the first attempt at mortise and tenon joinery, would it be easier to start with loose tenons or traditional mortise and tenon joints?
I don't know. I don't think one's easier than the other.
They're both equally hard.
In both cases. But I think to get more of an experience, the classic mortise and tenon joint is the way to go. When you're doing a loose mortise and tenon, you're really only cutting mortises. And then you cut a piece of stock at the table saw and maybe use a planer or something to thickness it. You're basically cutting a very thin board is when you make your tenon stock. The actual mortise and tenon experience involves cutting your mortise and then cutting an actual tenon to match, which is a whole different skill set. So I think you're going to get more out of the experience if you do a traditional integral mortise and tenon joint.
You're going to learn more.
You'll learn more.
Yeah.
And those skills are definitely something you'll want to apply to other projects.
Colton wants to know, I'm building my own shop, was wondering if I need 3-phase power.
I don't have 3-phase power, so I'm going to say no. But 3-phase power is something that's required for certain types of tooling, so it depends on what you want to do.
Exactly.
But if you look at what I do and you want to do what I do, then you don't need 3-phase power.
Eagle Cott, how do you overcome glue-up anxiety, the amount of prep and joinery when being a beginner, and the panic with my messing everything up at the end?
Okay, 3 things. You need to, number 1, do dry runs. If you can do it in a dry run, you're going to build your confidence that it's going to go well with the actual glue applied. Step number 2, use a long set glue. There's a Titebond Extend as an option. You have epoxies out there, plastic resin glues, hide glue. There are other glues on the market that will give you longer working time. And number 3, The hell's number 3?
I don't know.
There was a third thing. And it was a really good one, too. I don't remember. There's a number 3.
You're out of luck.
You're out of luck. Those are the only 2 options you've got. Oh, the other thing is, think in terms of sub-assemblies. A lot of times we think we have to put everything together in one shot, and you don't. A lot of times you can get away with just assembling 2 parts and then make that a sub-assembly. Then later on, in a later step, once that's dry, you can put that into the next portion. So see if your project can't be broken down into a simpler glue-up. Otherwise, the other 2 options are good for you if you have no choice.
There you go.
I knew I had a good third one.
Kyle wants to know, this is the last one. Would you, have you or would you ever consider doing a guild build for an acoustic guitar?
Nope.
That would be awesome if you did. I realize it's a lot of specialty work, but hey, I'm just... Don't we have a guitar series?
Yeah, we've got, what's his name's guitar series that he did, which is an acoustic guitar kit,
yes.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he did a great job with it, and I can't believe I'm spacing on his name. He's my homeboy.
Yeah,
I like him.
He's probably watching and you're hurting his feelings.
He makes pies. He's very talented. In this format, I tend to forget things easily.
I know, me too. Guitar. How to build a guitar.
I can't believe, it's really bothering me. We have to say his name. It's probably in the description. But anyways, probably Rick Urschel. Jeez. Rick. Yeah, I don't know why I spaced on that. So I am not a guitar player. I'm a drummer.
Yeah.
So the building of a guitar is something that really does take a lot of dedication. You have to learn. It's a whole new skill set, which means, in my opinion, you have to be interested in it. And I don't have a whole lot of interest in guitars at all. So I think the only way I would ever embark on that is, let's say Matteo or Ava really gets into playing guitars, and then there's my motivation.
Or if someone like Matt Cremona or...
Well, that's not to say we wouldn't get... I'm assuming they're talking about me.
Right.
We may someday get someone else who is an instrument maker to come in and build an instrument like that. But for me personally, I just don't have any interest in it, so I don't think I'm going to be dedicated enough to it to show you something you want to see.
So you told them you were a drummer, and now they're saying, so when are you going to build drums?
I'm not that interested in drumming. But honestly, if I ever did make an instrument, it's more likely to be a drum or some drum, percussive type instrument, because that's what I'm interested in. Okay, is that it? Are we done?
Yeah. There's other questions, but again,
of course.
Again, if you didn't get your question answered, I'm sorry. I got to go feed my kid.
Yeah, and also, of course, Patreon is where we get our first set of questions from. I didn't get to answer all of them today. I think I skipped about 3 or 4, and some came in late because I was late posting it. But that's a good way to get your questions in early too. But we try to get as many as we can.
Yeah.
All right. It's going to be time for lunch here soon.
Yep.
So thanks for watching, everybody. Happy Friday.
Did we forget anything? I feel like we forgot something.
We forgot to pick our winner.
Oh, yeah. You need to pick a winner. I have a bunch of questions here too.
I like Dan Salzwiedel's question about the rule of thumb for different thickness woods.
Yep.
The last question I asked here. So Dan, you get yourself a free guild project.
Dan the man.
Are you going to contact him?
I will contact you because I have your information.
Sweet mama. And don't forget Patreon. Yep. Patreon.com/woodwhisperers, where you can go to get a bunch of kickbacks and cool things.
And I'm going to set up that goal, so we might
for our
have a PM
edition. That's going to be interesting. Yeah. Especially since we have no one to watch the kids, so we've got to keep Matteo occupied.
Have a baby monitor.
Ava's going to be asleep. You might have to go at some point if Ava wakes up early, but she's a good sleeper. It's usually not necessary.
She is a very good sleeper. So.
All right. See you, everybody.
Have a great weekend.